Hello, my name's Harry. I'm 23, living in a dusty little town in the Midwest. The kind of place where the horizon stretches flat and endless like it's trying to escape itself. I work at an old produce warehouse on the outskirts, starting my shifts before the sun even thinks about rising. It's not much, stacking crates, loading trucks, sweeping floors, but it pays enough to keep the lights on in the rundown trailer I share with my grandma and little sisters on the edge of the woods. Grandma's getting frail, and my sister's got dreams of college that I won't let slip away. So I grind through double shifts, my hands calloused and scarred, my back aching by noon. Folks around here don't notice me much. I'm just the quiet kid who shows up, does the work, and fades into the background. No friends calling after hours, no weekends out. Just me, the crates, and the endless hum of the conveyor belts. I wasn't always like this. Back when Mom was alive, things felt different. She died when I was 8. Cancer took her quick, leaving me with memories of her soft voice reading bedtime stories and the smell of her baking bread on Sundays. Dad? He vanished before I could even remember his face, off chasing some better life that didn't include us. Grandma stepped in, but she's worn thin now, her stories about the old days repeating like a scratched record. I dropped out of high school to pick up odd jobs, anything to put food on the table. My sister, Lily, she's 16 now, smart as a whip, always buried in books. I tell her she'll get out of here, go to a big city, make something of herself. Me? I'm stuck, but that's okay, as long as she's free. The warehouse is a relic, all rusted metal beams and flickering fluorescent lights that buzz like angry bees. It's owned by some big ag company, but run day to day by Regina, the manager who's been there longer than anyone cares to remember. She's 43, I think, though she carries herself like someone who's seen twice that many years. Everyone whispers about her, cold as ice, sharp as a knife. She's fired guys for showing up 5 minutes late or stacking boxes sloppy. No one's ever seen her smile, not really. They call her the Iron Lady behind her back, joking that she's probably never been loved, too tough for anyone to get close. I kept my distance, head down, focusing on the work. She was just the boss, distant, unapproachable, with her clipboard and her no-nonsense stare. That morning hit me like a freight train. I'd pulled an all-nighter shift the day before, loading trucks till my eyes burned and my muscles screamed. Sleep? Maybe 3 hours on the lumpy couch at home, Grandma's snoring echoing through the thin walls. I dragged myself in at dawn, the cold air biting at my skin, my old flannel shirt clinging to me like a second skin. The conveyor belt was already rumbling, crates of apples rolling down like soldiers in line. I grabbed one heavy with fruit and hoisted it up. Too fast, maybe, or my grip slipped from exhaustion. The crate tilted, then crashed. Apples spilled everywhere, bouncing off the belt, rolling under machines, juice splattering like rain. One hit the floor and burst, sending a sticky spray right onto a pair of polished leather shoes that had just stepped into view. Time froze. I looked up, heart pounding, and there she was, Regina, clipboard in hand, her face a mask of controlled fury. Her eyes, sharp and unyielding, locked onto mine like lasers cutting through fog. The juice had soaked the hem of her pants too, but it was the shoes that stood out. Expensive, the kind you don't wear to a warehouse unless you mean business. "What the hell is this?" she snapped, her voice slicing through the hum of the machines. "How many times do I have to tell you people to handle the stock carefully? I don't pay you to turn my floor into a damn orchard." My face burned, a mix of shame and fatigue crashing over me like a wave. My hands trembled as I knelt to pick up the scattered fruit, the sticky juice coating my fingers. "I'm sorry," I muttered, voice barely above a whisper. "It was an accident. I'll clean it up. I'll pay for the damage if I have to." She didn't budge, crossing her arms, her presence towering even though she wasn't much taller than me. "Sorry doesn't fix ruined inventory, does it? Clean this mess, every last spot. And you're on penalty shift until it's spotless. I don't run a charity here, and I sure as hell don't tolerate carelessness." The other workers paused, whispers rippling through the air like wind through cornfields. "Poor kid's done for," someone murmured from behind a stack of crates. "Regina's got that look. Bet he doesn't last the week." Another voice, a woman's, chuckled low. "What did you expect? She's always been a hard ass. Probably why she's still single at her age." I bit my lip hard enough to taste blood, keeping my head down as I scrubbed the floor with a rag from my pocket. The humiliation stung worse than the ache in my knees. Why did it always feel like I was one step away from being invisible or despised? I'd worked my ass off here, pulling shifts no one else wanted, never complaining. One slip, one tired moment, and I was the villain. My thoughts raced. Why me? Why today? All I want is to get through the day, send money home for Lily's books. Is that too much to ask? As I wiped the last of the juice from her shoes, careful not to touch her, Regina watched, silent. For a split second, our eyes met again. Hers weren't just cold. There was something else there. A flicker of curiosity, maybe even recognition. Like she saw past the mess, past the label of that poor loader kid, and caught the stubborn fire in my gaze. I didn't know it then, but that was the moment everything started to shift. The first crack in the walls we'd both built so high. The whispers started almost immediately, slithering through the warehouse like smoke from a dying fire. By lunchtime, I could feel the eyes on me. Side glances from the other loaders, low chuckles behind stacks of crates. "Harry's in the doghouse now," one guy muttered as he passed, loud enough for me to hear but not enough to confront. "Regina's got her claws out. Kid won't last the month." I kept my head down, stacking the next load of crates with mechanical precision, my arms burning from the effort. But inside it churned, a hot mix of shame and anger that made my chest tight. Why did one mistake erase everything else? I'd been here for months, hauling more weight than anyone, never complaining about the late nights or the freezing mornings. Now I was just the screw-up who ruined the boss's shoes. I avoided Regina the rest of the shift, timing my breaks when she was in her office, slipping out the back door for air instead of joining the crew in the break room. The rumors fed on themselves. She's always hated guys like him. Young, quiet, thinks he's better than the rest. Nah, she's just bitter. Old and alone, you know? Probably jealous of anyone with a life. I overheard it all, bits and pieces that stung like salt in a cut. My thoughts spiraled as I scrubbed the conveyor belt long after everyone else had clocked out. Why bother, I wondered, the rag sopping with leftover juice? All this for a paycheck that barely covers the bills. Lily needs me, but maybe I should just pack up and head back to the farm jobs out in the sticks. At least there, no one judges you for a slip-up. That evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the warehouse in long shadows, I lingered to finish the penalty work. The place felt emptier than usual, the machine silent except for the occasional creak of settling metal. I was mopping the last sticky spot when I heard a thud from the back storage area, sharp, followed by a muffled curse. My heart jumped. I dropped the mop and hurried over, flashlight from my pocket cutting through the dim. There she was, Regina, sprawled on the concrete near a tower of empty pallets. Her face twisted in pain as she clutched her ankle. The power must have flickered out back here. A loose cord snaked across the floor like a trap. "Are you okay?" I asked, kneeling beside her without thinking. Up close, in the half-light, she looked different. Not the ironclad boss, but a woman worn down, her eyes rimmed with fatigue that mirrored my own. She tried to wave me off, her voice sharp but strained. "I'm fine. Just twisted it. Go on, finish your work. I don't need pity." Pity? The word hit me like a slap, but I saw the wince as she shifted, the way her hand trembled on the cold floor. Memories flooded in unbidden, nights when Grandma had fallen in the trailer, her hip giving out, and I'd been the only one there to help her up, to fetch ice and pretend everything was all right. "It's not pity," I said quietly, helping her sit up against a crate. "Just human." I grabbed a clean rag from nearby, wrapped it around her ankle as best I could, then fetched a bottle of water from the cooler up front. She didn't say a word as I handed it to her, but her eyes followed me, wary, like she was waiting for the catch. When I stepped back into the shadows to give her space, disappearing without expecting thanks, my mind raced. Why did I even bother? She's the one who chewed me out in front of everyone. But deeper down, a flicker of something else stirred. A quiet ache, recognizing that same loneliness in her that I carried every day. The way she sat there alone, handling everything solo, reminded me of Mom in her last months, pushing people away because it hurt less than letting them in. Back home that night, the trailer creaked under a light rain. Grandma asleep in her chair with the TV flickering blue light across her face. Lily was at the kitchen table, books spread out, her pencil scratching away. "Rough day?" she asked, glancing up with those big eyes that saw too much. Yeah, I muttered, collapsing onto the couch. But I didn't tell her about the spill, the rumors, or the strange pull I felt toward Regina. Instead, I thought of her alone in that warehouse, the vulnerability she'd hidden so well. For the first time, I wondered what lay behind her walls, what hurts had forged that steel exterior. And in the quiet, my own frustrations boiled over. The endless grind, the judgment from folks who didn't know my story, the fear that I'd always be the outsider looking in. Tears pricked my eyes, but I blinked them back. One day, I promised myself, I'll prove them all wrong. But tonight just hurts. Meanwhile, though I didn't know it then, Regina sat in her sparse apartment across town, the walls echoing with silence. Her ankle throbbed as she propped it up on a worn ottoman, staring at the stained shoes in the corner. The day's events replayed. The spill, my quick apology, the way I'd helped without fanfare. She sipped cold tea from a mug, her mind drifting to faded memories. A fiancé who cheated years ago, friends who vanished when she needed them most, a family that expected her to be the strong one. Always. Why am I like this? She whispered to the empty room, a rare crack in her armor. Pushing everyone away, afraid they'll see the mess underneath. For the first time in years, doubt crept in. Maybe her harshness wasn't strength, but a shield. And maybe, just maybe, that quiet kid with the stubborn eyes had glimpsed through it. The thought unsettled her, stirring emotions she'd long buried. Loneliness, regret, a quiet yearning for connection. As the rain pattered on her window, she wondered if it was too late to change. The days after that twisted ankle dragged on like a slow-moving storm. Regina was out of commission for a bit, her foot wrapped in a brace, hobbling around the warehouse with a crutch she'd dug out from somewhere. I heard through the grapevine that she'd insisted on coming in anyway. No sick days for the Iron Lady. Me? I buried myself in work, picking up extra hours to cover the slack, my body running on autopilot while my mind replayed that night over and over. The way she'd looked at me in the dim light, not with her usual steel, but something softer, like a crack in armor. It unsettled me, made me question why I'd rushed to help. Was it just habit from taking care of Grandma and Lily? Or was there something more, a pull I couldn't name? I started small without thinking much about it. One morning, I left a small bag of over-the-counter pain relievers on her desk. Nothing fancy, just stuff from the corner store that helped with swelling. No note, no fuss. The next day, when the chill set in early, I brewed an extra cup of coffee from the break room pot and set it beside her clipboard while she was on a call. Black, no sugar. I'd noticed how she took it during shifts. She didn't say anything at first, but I caught her glancing my way more often, her sharp eyes narrowing like she was trying to figure me out. At first, it seemed to irritate her. I overheard her snapping at another worker about unnecessary distractions, and I wondered if that was aimed at me. What's his angle? I imagined her thinking, her walls going up higher, trying to butter me up for a raise, or pitying the old boss lady. The thought made my stomach twist. I wasn't after anything. Helping was just what I did, like fixing Grandma's leaky roof or walking Lily home from school to keep the neighborhood creeps at bay. But with Regina, it felt different, heavier. There was a quiet respect in it, born from seeing that flicker of pain in her eyes. She was tough, yeah, but toughness like that usually hid scars deeper than mine. As the week wore on, something shifted. She stopped avoiding my gaze during roll call, even nodded once when I passed her in the aisles. The rumors died down a little. Folks moved on to the next bit of gossip, but the tension lingered like static before a rain. Then came that evening when the sun hung low, turning the fields around the warehouse golden. Regina had volunteered to inspect the outer storage sheds alone, something about inventory checks before the weekend rush. The paths out there were muddy from recent rains, potholes hidden under puddles that could swallow a boot hole. I finished my shift early but hung back, watching her head out with her brace still on. Without overthinking it, I jogged up. "Road's slick out there," I said, falling into step. "Mind if I tag along? Safer with two." She paused, eyeing me like she might refuse, but then shrugged. "Suit yourself, just don't slow me down." We walked in silence at first, the crunch of gravel under our feet the only sound. The air smelled of damp earth and ripening crops. stirring memories of summers I'd spent scavenging in the woods as a kid, picking berries to stretch our meals. Out here, away from the buzzing lights and prying eyes, the warehouse felt miles away. It started with small talk about the weather, the upcoming harvest. But as the sky darkened, the words turned deeper. I don't know why I opened up first. Maybe it was the quiet, or the way she listened without interrupting. I told her about Mom, how she'd sing lullabies even when chemo left her weak, her voice fading like a distant radio. How Dad's postcard from California was the last we heard, promising he'd come back but never did. Growing up with Grandma in that trailer, patching holes in the roof with duct tape, wearing hand-me-downs that made the kids at school laugh. Got called a trash boy once, I admitted, kicking a pebble into the mud. Wore the same shirt 3 days straight because we couldn't afford laundry. Hurt like hell, but I learned to keep my head down. Now it's all for Lily. She's got potential, books, dreams. I won't let her end up like me. Regina was quiet, her crutch sinking slightly into the soft ground. Then, softly, she started sharing. About her younger days, chasing approval from a family that saw her as the fixer, the one who never cried, never faltered. A boyfriend who'd promised forever but left her for someone easier. Friends who vanished when she needed them, labeling her too intense, too much. I built this shell, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Thought strength meant no one could hurt me. But it just left me empty. Up on that pedestal, alone, wondering if anyone's ever seen the real me, the scared girl underneath. We stopped by the edge of a field, the stars peeking through clouds. I looked at her, really looked. The lines around her eyes from years of holding back, the way her shoulders slumped just a fraction. You're not alone, I said, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. Not really. You've just never had someone willing to look past the walls, to see the wounds and not run. That's when it happened. The dam broke. Regina's face crumpled and tears spilled down her cheeks, silent at first, then in quiet sobs that shook her frame. She turned away embarrassed, but I didn't move, just stood there as the night wrapped around us. For the first time, she let it out. The pain, the isolation, the weight of pretending. And in that moment, watching her vulnerability unfold like a hidden flower, something in me cracked too. A warmth spread through my chest, a mix of protectiveness and awe. This woman, so much older, so guarded, was trusting me with her raw edges. It healed something in me I didn't know was broken. The boy who'd always felt unseen, now seeing someone else. We didn't speak after. I just walked her back, the silence full of unspoken understanding. That night, under the stars, our wounds touched, and the healing began. The whispers that had simmered in the background began to boil over in the weeks that followed our walk under the stars. At first it was subtle. A knowing glance from a coworker as I handed Regina a stack of inventory sheets. Or a hushed comment when we lingered a moment too long, discussing shift rotations. But soon, the rumors spread like weeds in the cracked concrete of the warehouse lot. What's going on with the boss and that kid? Someone muttered during lunch, their voice carrying just far enough for me to catch. She's old enough to be his mom. Bet she's got some midlife thing going on. Another laughed, low and mean. Or he's after promotion. Poor fool thinks cozying up to the Ice Queen will get him somewhere. I felt the words like pinpricks, each one digging into the soft spots I'd only just started to heal. Chen lech toi tak. It hung in the air unspoken, a barrier that made our quiet connection feel like something twisted, something to mock. I tried to ignore it, focusing on the rhythm of my days, the heft of crates in my arms, the sting of sweat in my eyes, the small comforts of home where Lily's laughter reminded me why I pushed through. But the stairs grew heavier, the isolation sharper. Regina noticed too, her shoulders tense during meetings, her voice clipped when addressing the crew. We'd share fleeting looks across the floor, a silent acknowledgement of the storm brewing. But we didn't speak of it. Not yet. The age gap loomed in my thoughts like a shadow. She with her years of hardened wisdom, and me still raw from a life of scraps. What are we even doing? I'd wonder in the quiet hours, lying awake in the trailer, the rain tapping on the tin roof like accusatory fingers. She's lived lifetimes I can't touch. Am I just a fool reaching for something that'll break us both? The breaking point came on a muggy afternoon, the air thick with the scent of overripe fruit and diesel. I was in the back, inventorying a shipment of pears when Tom, one of the older loaders with a chip on his shoulder, stormed in, his face red. He'd always resented how I outworked him without complaint, and now, with the rumors fueling his jealousy, he saw his chance. "Missing crates," he barked to Regina when she arrived, pointing at a logbook he'd doctored. Harry was the last one handling them. Probably fencing them for quick cash, kids always scraping by. The accusation hit like a gut punch. My hands froze on the clipboard, the world narrowing to the pounding in my ears. Stealing? Me? After all the nights I'd stayed late, the loads I'd carried alone? The crew gathered, murmurs swelling. Wouldn't surprise me, young and desperate. Yeah, and getting chummy with the boss to cover his tracks. Regina's face was a mask, but I saw the flicker of doubt in her eyes, the same walls I'd glimpsed cracking now rebuilding. Procedure demanded it. She suspended me pending investigation, her voice steady, but her hands clenched white-knuckled on her desk. "Go home, Harry, we'll sort this." I nodded numbly, grabbing my backpack, the weight of betrayal crushing me. As I walked out, the stairs burned. Pity from some, satisfaction from others. My thoughts spiraled into despair. This is it. The world's always seen me as trash. Why fight it? Lily'll understand if I head back to the farms, start over where no one knows my name. That night, I packed a duffel bag in the dim trailer light, Grandma's worried eyes following me. Memories flooded. Mom's frail hand in mine, promising I'd be strong. The postcard from Dad that I'd burned years ago. I'm done being the outsider, I thought, tears blurring my vision. Better alone than accused. But Regina didn't sleep those nights. In her apartment, the silence amplified her turmoil, the creak of the floorboards echoing her pacing, the cold mug of tea forgotten on the table. Doubts gnawed. Have I been blind? Or is this just another knife in the back? She pored over logs, camera footage, her ankle still aching as a reminder of my quiet help. Piece by piece, the truth emerged. Tom's forgery, his grudge, plain in altered timestamps. By dawn, her resolve hardened, not from anger, but from a fierce protectiveness she'd never allowed herself before. He's not like the others, she realized, thinking of my stories under the stars, the way I'd seen her scars without flinching, and I won't let them break him. The next morning, she called an all-hands meeting in the main bay, the crew shuffling in with curious murmurs. I showed up too, backpack slung over my shoulder, ready to quit. Regina stood tall, her voice cutting through the chatter. The accusations against Harry were false, fabricated by someone here out of spite. Gasps rippled. Tom's face paled. She laid out the evidence, her tone unyielding. Then, in front of everyone, she turned to me, reaching out to grasp my hand, warm, steady, a lifeline in the storm. "I was wrong not to trust in kindness sooner," she said, her eyes locking on mine. "Harry's the most reliable person in this place. If anyone's got a problem with that, try matching his work ethic first." The room fell silent, the weight of her words sinking in. My chest tightened, emotions crashing over me, relief, gratitude, a raw vulnerability I'd buried deep. Tears welled up, spilling hot down my cheeks right there in the warehouse, sobs shaking my frame as years of held-back pain poured out. Regina didn't let go, her smile soft for the first time, unconcerned with the stares. In that moment, the age between us faded. It was just us, two wounded souls choosing to stand together. She saw me, not the poor kid, but the man I'd become. And for once, I didn't care who watched. Time passed like the slow turn of seasons in our Midwest town, where the fields shifted from green to gold and back again, mirroring the quiet transformation in our lives. The warehouse, once a cold, echoing shell of metal and machinery, started to feel like home, not just for me, but for everyone. The rumors that had once poisoned the air faded into whispers, then silence, as folks saw the changes with their own eyes. Regina, the woman they dubbed the Iron Lady, softened in ways that surprised even her. Her commands turned to conversations, her clipboard a tool for guidance rather than judgment. She laughed now, real, warm laughs that crinkled the corners of her eyes, and listened when workers shared their troubles, offering advice born from her own hard-won wisdom. No one called her cold anymore. Instead, they sought her out, respecting the strength that now came wrapped in kindness. For me, the shift was even deeper. I wasn't the silent loader anymore, head bowed against the world's weight. With Regina's quiet encouragement, I found my voice. Speaking up in meetings, sharing ideas on streamlining shipments that saved hours of labor. The lonesomeness that had clung to me like dust from the fields began to lift. Lily noticed it first. She'd come by after school sometimes, her backpack slung over one shoulder, eyes wide at the bustling warehouse. Regina took to her immediately, treating her like the daughter she'd never had, helping with homework over makeshift lunches in the break room, slipping her books on science and history. "You've got fire in you, kid," Regina would say, ruffling Lily's hair. "Don't let anyone dim it." Watching them together stirred something profound in me, a warmth that healed the old aches from Mom's absence, Dad's abandonment. Lily called her Aunt Reggie one day, and Regina's eyes misted over. She didn't correct her. We started small initiatives that grew into something bigger, a way to give back to the town that had shaped us both in its harsh, unforgiving way. It began with a conversation one rainy afternoon in Regina's office, the window streaked with water like tears on glass. "We've both been knocked down," she said, her hand covering mine across the desk. "Why not help others stand up?" So we opened free classes in the warehouse after hours, teaching basic reading to the migrant kids who wandered the fields, vocational skills like basic mechanics and inventory management to the teens like me who'd dropped out. I'd lead sessions on fixing engines, drawing from the scraps I'd learned, patching Grandma's old truck, while Regina taught organization and resilience, her stories of betrayal and bounce-backs captivating the room. The kids looked at us with wide eyes, seeing not just teachers but proof that scars didn't define you. "You can come from nothing," I'd tell them, my voice steady now, "and still deserve everything. Trust, love, a fair shot." Our evenings blurred into simple rituals that filled the voids we'd carried for so long. We'd share meals in her apartment or my trailer, nothing fancy, just grilled cheese on rainy nights or stew from whatever was in the pantry. Laughter replaced the old silences, Regina teasing me about my youthful energy as I chased Lily around the yard, or me recounting warehouse mishaps that had her chuckling till tears formed. The age between us, 20 years that once felt like a chasm, became a bridge. She taught me patience, drawing from her decades of standing alone. I showed her gentleness, reminding her that vulnerability wasn't weakness. In quiet moments, as we sat on her porch watching fireflies dance, memories surfaced like ghosts finally at peace. I'd think of Mom's lullabies, how Regina's steady presence echoed that lost comfort. She'd recall her ex's betrayals, her voice soft as she admitted, "With you, I don't have to pretend anymore." Our touches, her hand in mine, my arm around her shoulders, were anchors, healing the isolation we'd both known too well. The town shifted too. No more sidelong glances. Instead, nods of respect as we walked together to the diner for coffee. I became a quiet inspiration, the poor kid who'd risen not through luck but grit and goodness. "If Harry can face the whispers and come out stronger," folks said, "maybe we all can." Regina, once isolated on her pedestal, found community in the classes, her laughter drawing people in. Our love wasn't fireworks or grand declarations, it was steady, like the river carving through the plains, persistent, transformative. In the end, it proved that one act of staying, of daring to cross walls built from pain and prejudice, could spark life in the most barren places. Happiness bloomed from the cracks, rooted in trust and kindness, showing us, and the town, that wounds could mend, and new homes could be built from the ruins of old ones.